We're always,
He's probably nervous about the weather tomorrow. The fields are in
oh,
okay
yeah.
shape right now. But
Yeah,
I'm
just in
more-
time for them to dry
just
out.
haven't dried. I was over at Exeter Rec this morning, and I was like, oh man, they're actually like usable right now.
Well, we did our egg hunt on Saturday, and the upper field was a swamp.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
lower field is typically the one that's
Yeah.
worse, so I didn't even entertain going down there.
Here's Mr. Chamberlain.
I'm more worried about telling all the field users, like, you may have to push it out a week, because they were hoping to start as early as Sunday, and I just,
Yeah. I'd
with the
say
weather coming in, I don't think it'll be ready.
we're getting like inch and a
so.
half of rain.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not gonna go. It has nowhere to go.
Nick? For me,
Well, kind of.
is it fan mail?
Always.
Is this a free seat?
That's
Yep,
your seat.
you're-
Yeah.
you get them.
Yeah. Alright. 1:30, get started?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're all asking why I've asked you to be here today. Did everyone take a look at the old minutes from the last meeting? We have to do a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
second?
Perfect, thank you. Karen has signed the contract from Weston and Sampson. So last week's board meeting? We asked the board for the $10,000, and for them to kind of review the scope of services and the master plan feasibility study.
She can have
Okay. I forget the guy, Dan, I think his name was, he came and did some good question Q&As with the folks here, and I think the board asked a good amount of questions. One of the questions that did come up was, are we putting it out to bid or not? And the answer was, well, we already know Weston Sampson's gonna provide the product, and not necessarily wanting to go with the lowest bidder. So, speaking from my own experience, having gone through this process in a different town, going with the lowest bidder was not great. We had a leaky ceiling within, a couple weeks of moving in. And the chief that I worked for was painting walls himself. So like, I'd rather not have to do any of that stuff ourselves or deal with any of that stuff. Hey, Jared. And Paul had asked too what kind of man hours, if you will, does this $10,000 cover? So there's no real necessarily hours assigned to it. They're gonna do $10,000 worth of work is what it comes down to, and try to get us a pretty good start and just a good feasibility. Maybe I don't know if you can talk to it more. So feel free to jump in. But at the board meeting last week, they agreed to spend the $10,000, and then just one of the board members had asked like, oh, what does that actually get us? Like, how many hours does it get us? And Dan was like, well, it doesn't really. It's not necessarily a matter of hours. It's we're going to give you a product that's worth $1,000.
Yeah, yes. That's what it sounded like from what I heard from, I think it's gonna be all the things they included in the presentation to us, basically. We're gonna get the abbreviated feasibility study, which includes the space needs, the new building plan, and allocation of spaces, and cost estimate, and everything like that.
So then, we'll likely need, obviously, more money in the future as this plan goes further. So, once we get the feasibility study, I'm assuming that'll give us a better idea, and then they'll talk to us about the next steps from there. And then, after more, once our space needs are met, and they decide how much space we need and what we'll need in there, I'm sure that,
Well, at that point, when we have a viable number,
like total cost, you think?
Not necessarily, because they're not, he said that at our meeting.
Ballpark or something like that, maybe?
They use like a third party to
Yeah.
give like ballpark estimates, but
Yeah.
until you actually put it out to bid for somebody to build it, you're not gonna have like an exact.
well, that's
number.
always construction, but.
Right,
but-
right.
but
I think they're trying to get us a
right,
ballpark figure.
right.
Yeah. And do you know, Justin, because one part I wasn't sure about was, are they gonna give us comparison numbers, like if we were to stay here, what would the cost be to expand upstairs as we grow, to fix downstairs, or is that not part of this?
I thought they said something when they were here last time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when he came to that presentation, he did say that
He
they
talked about
usually throw
renovation
in
costs.
renovations, 'cause
Okay.
it's usually
I think that would be helpful when we think about
Yeah.
going to the voters in
I
terms
agree,
of
yeah.
choice A versus choice B versus choice C.
Yeah,
That, you know, renovating this building is an option, but might be significantly
Just-
expensive,
yeah, just as much, probably.
right?
you
Okay.
know.
I wasn't sure how detailed of like a renovation assessment they were gonna do.
You know,
See, I kind of came away from.
I heard him saying it
in
when
a
he was here
different
last
way.
time.
Like, I was thinking they weren't necessarily looking at the renovation costs. per
I don't
se.
think reservation, but they were trying to say to us, I think he said, that he was trying to tell us that it'd be about just without the, just the police station, without the town hall. So that money, and what they thought they could sell, there was a projected cost of what they could sell this
Right.
business. I don't recall anything about renovating this business.
I know he talked about that it's
Yeah.
important for the town to kind of
To see it, yeah.
assess that to some degree for the voters to
Yeah.
understand. But I just wasn't clear whether their initial feasibility included that or not.
I
We
don't
could probably
know if the initial feasibility was, but, that might be a good question just to throw out there to Dan, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they might be able to just kind of say renovation is X per square foot.
Yeah.
Right,
And
even if it's ballpark,
new
yeah.
construction is like
Yeah.
1.1x
Right.
per square foot.
Do you
then
know
you're
a
like-
town that has done renovations instead of a build?
He did mention one, he didn't say the town specifically, but I guess it was it was requested to get a renovation, and he was like, saying that was gonna be astronomically more, but they wanted it to throw back at,
We could
to
start
show
with
the
one,
town.
especially with similar size, building,
Yeah.
demographics.
And generally speaking, I say I spent 15 years in this business. And, no, the renovations usually end up being more than you think, and it
Yeah.
isn't. When I was on the school board in Brentwood, when we did the middle school, when we went to build it, and there was the old junior high, which was very similar in construction, quotation marks, to us. It was built, you know, not the high standard, built quickly. And I can tell you the whole story about this building, because I was part of it when they built it. That's how old I am. But anyway, when we went out to, you know, they were going to decide whether they were going to take the old junior high and renovate it, or build a new middle school. And we got done, and it was 55 million, of course, it's quite a long time ago now, of course, but 55 million for the new building and 52 million for the renovation.
Right.
To me, there was no contest.
I think that's kind of what he was implying in his
right.
presentation to us, is usually it's not a real contest.
No, it isn't, it was
But we
really,
might, if we need to give more information to the voters, we might at some point need to give them some numbers like that.
yeah, and that's a fact, because I say, I was chairman of the school board at the time, and you'll see my name on that little paper
Makes
there.
sense.
And that was just, to me, there was it just wasn't any contest.
Right.
And that building that they were renovating was not, let's put it high class, or not a good word. How about not first class material? And be honest with you, with this building, I happen to know what this building was originally, and there has always been water. This was swamp, is
Yeah,
and
look
what.
around.
Yeah, and we, it was donated by someone, a builder in town, and we literally volunteers built the building.
Yeah.
And there wasn't, there was no money.
Right.
That was the bottom line. We weren't building, for
But that might
longevity.
be a helpful
Yeah.
talking point, Lois, if and when we have to talk to the public about renovation versus new build, in terms of like, should we just move everything versus try to renovate this? That just being able to give them that data point, like, hey, we did this once before in
Yeah,
Pencoa,
and
and
I
it was
will.
not, it was really not that different for
Yeah, I
renovation
will,
versus
because,
new build.
well, I still see two of my board members, and Karen Bernard and my friend Gail Turcott, and we laugh about it.
Yeah.
Because, there was such a fight in town,
Yeah.
It took us 4 times. And now how at the end of each town meeting, each vote, you say, I will vote to shut it down? That's
To not
when-
reconsider.
Not to consider?
We've learned.
Yeah.
Well, those days, that's what happened. 4 times, 5 minutes before we're gonna go home, puts a hand up. I continue this meeting. We were shut down 4 times after we had already passed it, because we hadn't closed off the bidding, the voting. So that's when that all transpired.
Yep.
And we won't talk about how long ago that was, but, yeah, I will definitely, because
Yeah, that's helpful.
mean, my thing has been if downstairs, you know, they've made it out of a PD for however long, you know, we've pushed operations out of there, we've had, you know, as much success as we could, but obviously we've outgrown it. But if it's not good enough for us, it really shouldn't be good enough for the folks
Right.
here either.
Right.
Just, you know,
And so it would
make us
have to be
tolerable.
renovated no
Yeah.
matter what, so that town office staff could use
Yeah.
it, but then you need stairs or
And
an
it's not
elevator.
ADA
You
either
need
way,
stairs, you
so,
need,
And that's probably gonna be
yeah, I mean, I
enough
can't
money that
Imagine what an elevator
it
costs.
might,
I'm sure it's
it
not
might
cheap.
help us argue for the combo building, just knowing how much those renovations would cost.
Yeah, for sure.
and there's so much these days with the, you know, environmental people, places like down there, you're fighting City Hall, literally.
Yep.
People do not want mold and that kind of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just,
And I mean, let's be
To
honest
know.
too, anyone who's ever done a house project, you know, you break into one wall and you think, what was that contractor thinking when he did X, Y, and Z? So you always just run into other problems, I feel like, anytime there's any sort of, like renovations done.
yeah.
So.
Well, this didn't have a contractor.
What were those volunteers thinking?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a Brentwood story. It's like the amphitheater too. Well, it was
Yeah.
built by volunteers. It was great.
Did that guy ever
It's
send you a
just-
copy of the presentation that they had done here?
The
Yeah.
one they gave last month to us.
Yes.
Yep.
The last meeting.
Yes, could you email that to me and I can put it?
I sent it out last week.
I think she sent it to all the select board.
I might not have been on that distribution list yet,
Oh, that's possible.
or it might have been before I got my email.
I can send it to you.
Well, I think the other thing, Kip can document all the money that's been spent downstairs
Right.
on a
Over the
shoestring
years.
for the last, I don't know, 5 years.
I know he was just getting quotes recently to do, you know, whole drainage system and stuff in there along the swamp that goes down there.
Yeah, even just getting what's been done down there is, there were places he couldn't go and get things done.
Right,
But he
yeah.
wanted to because of ceiling heights or wall openings.
Yeah. I mean, my thing is too, as we pursue state accreditation, I come to this
Just send it
roadblock
to
that
her.
I can't go any further with it. I can't
Wait,
get
wait.
accredited
I was
because
just telling Lydia I
the
sent it.
specs downstairs don't meet it. Like our booking room isn't accreditation worthy, our evidence room definitely is not accreditation worthy. You know, our like juvenile, we don't really
Yeah.
have sight sound separation, stuff like that, so, there's just a lot of areas that need improvement on our end. And I would hate to stick anyone else down there and expose them.
Well, and that's a really good point, because I think a lot of the public are gonna think of it as, do we build a police station or do we build a combo building? But you really have to have that follow-up conversation. If we just build a police station and this building stays, what do we do with downstairs to make it usable? We can't just leave it empty.
Yeah.
That would be crazy, because we're already talking about we're out of room up here.
Yeah.
So then you have to factor in, if you just build a police station, there's that whole other construction project that's gonna need to happen here.
Right.
Versus do it all at once, and the costs may be similar,
And you're never cutting the fat in the water.
right?
Like, this is just
Right.
never gonna be a thing.
So I think we always have to think about it, like how to, because there are definitely some people in town who are not sold on the idea of
Oh,
moving the
absolutely,
combo
yeah.
building, and I think one of the ways to convince people is the dollars.
Yeah.
And that it might actually be a cost savings to just
Is it-
start.
And the same thing with the equipment. In this building, what they have now, their computers and all this, all that, that's all gonna go to the new building. They're not
Sure.
gonna get all new, it's not.
Yeah,
I
anything
mean,
that can be
Yeah,
moved
all
over,
this
it's
stuff
gonna
is
move
gonna go.
over.
Right, it's not gonna, there's no, you're not gonna have a major expense in that.
Right.
Is there a sense that the upstairs is adequate, knowing that the downstairs is not adequate?
I think they're kind of out of room, right, Karen, in terms
We
of,
are
yeah.
out of room.
I'm sure if you were to talk to each department, they have their own things to nitpick about, but I mean, I would like to assume I'm gonna have some just growth in general within, next 5 to 10 years, and I'm already running out of space in my office now for how I just operate on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, when Andy gets an assistant at some
How,
point.
how
where they
about
go-
at either end, Karen at your end and Daphne's end?
We're gonna need to add staff and there's no place to put them.
we were just talking about that at our select board meeting
Last
last week, that we potentially need to add somebody to help with finance, and we don't have a place for them to
Yeah,
sit.
so they're
Just in the
nowhere.
vault.
That was kind of what I was getting at with the rooms to grow, because I know I would like an assistant at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for us, individual workstations are huge.
Yeah, so if town offices stay here, we'd have to use downstairs. And then, and we'd have to put stairs or elevator, because you can't have Karen's like direct reports having to walk
Yeah.
outside in the snow to get to their office.
Like the library,
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so
I know you do, but that we're trying to move you.
From the municipal building to the rec building
When I
instead
first
of
started
driving
there.
across every time.
I asked Chief, I was like, where's the staircase to go upstairs? He's like, good one. No, really, where is it? It's like,
Yeah.
you gotta go outside. Oh.
That is kind of funny. I've never understood why when this building, maybe you know why when this building was built, there was never any ability to get from upstairs to downstairs.
Because that was a basement, it was not gonna be a used room.
Well, that would make sense then. Question answered.
Because historically, the town hall was in Betty Waite, am I got the right way? Betty Waite.
Betty Waite.
Her house on the porch, a big, you know where the vet place is?
Yeah.
That house, that greenhouse, the porch, that was town hall.
Ah.
You went in and you sat on the, when I moved here, I was, blew me away. You went in, you sat on the porch.
And where was the PD years ago, before it was
Wayne's house.
downstairs?
We didn't have a
Somebody's
PD.
house? Wayne's house, okay.
No, literally.
It was
No,
in
no,
the
no.
Giltuck's car.
Well, Wayne, we had a part-time.
Yep.
We never had any full-time.
Right.
And we had one part-time.
Right, so it didn't need a,
It didn't need a
Yeah,
home.
gotcha.
Home.
gotcha.
There were no
okay.
police officers.
But that makes sense, and that's gonna be helpful information for the public, because I've lived here 16 years and I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that that was the
Well, did
progression
you know,
of things.
I got this
you know?
last night, we were doing a
It's
library
helpful.
thing. Do you know that the library was an old schoolhouse? Did you-
Yes, I knew that.
And that's why the problem, the inside, there was no connection.
Yep,
Because it was added on,
right,
and they made stairs, but they weren't adequate.
right,
And that's why you have to go outside there too.
right.
That's
Right.
my big thing.
Yeah, but I think that's helpful for people to understand that the PD was never intended to be downstairs. It
No, of
just
course
kind of
not.
happened.
And I'm trying to think what it actually was. It was just storage.
Storage.
I don't think it was actually anything at all till the PD,
And
became a
this rear
department.
lot was never here initially, right?
What?
The rear parking lot was not here initially, that was
I
after.
No,
think
this whole section wasn't here. It only ended,
Crazy.
But that is part of the educational process that the town needs to be brought along
Interesting things.
to start to really buy into this.
yeah. Well, yeah, you and I know, but lots of people don't.
Yeah.
It tells a story of why we're ready for a change.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of just,
Yes.
I think that's really helpful. Like,
And the other thing is that there was about 2,500 people, give or take.
Yeah.
So now we got over 4,000.
yeah,
So,
almost 5,000.
so you see that your difference, which isn't a lot in 50 years. This is I
Yeah.
moved here, those 25.
Still a small town.
But it's a small town. But with the facility, what it was, you had no need. You didn't have the planning board met once a month, and good heavens, I moved here. I'm really going to get old. To when the zoning went in. Remember?
Well, I was just thinking that when Ann and I registered to vote in the firehouse in
Right.
'71, and Betty Waite was the
Town
town
clerk.
clerk, she yelled down the length of the room, amazingly, 2 more Democrats. Because we were very much a Republican town.
We sure were.
Funny.
But you know what it was? It didn't matter. Because all we were working for was to go to the town.
That's
So
right.
you knew what you were, you knew what I was, but we didn't talk about it.
Exactly.
It
Well,
wasn't-
and
it
that's
wasn't
what-
relevant.
But that's what this police building should be too. It's not,
The
No,
building
it's-
it's
itself
for the good of
be-
the town.
is to
No.
provide a service to the town.
Yeah.
If you want
That's
to talk
right.
about bringing
It's not
businesses
partisan.
into town and stuff like that, which a lot of the residents want now, if you're a business owner and you saw this building, you saw the police services, is that attractive as a
I
multi-million
think
business?
it'd be more
It
attractive
is.
if I knew you were on 125 and you could get on the road quicker.
Yeah, I think just having a nice building with professional services is ultimately what, we can get past water and sewer at some
Yeah.
point, but let's show that my business is gonna be protected 24/7. I know I'm gonna have town hall staff when I have questions about my tax bills or my whatever.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can actually see from 125, as well as the BRC property.
It might be more anecdotal, but I do think, trying to sell this to the town, like just saying like, when your rec facilities are going on, or I know in those back dirt lots, there's times I've been in there, I see cars coming out, like, oh, I wonder what they were doing back there.
Yeah.
I just think having a presence over there is also gonna make the area safer for our participants and residents.
I completely agree.
So I think that's a big thing to push too, because we have a lot of town events that take place over there, we're year round. So when you just got kids running around, you got playgrounds, they're like, hey, we got PD right here.
Behave yourself. The
yeah.
PD is over there.
Optically, I think that's a big sign.
Yeah, I agree.
I would wonder from, I guess it'd be a question for Kip, but like some of the systems in this building are probably past their lifespan. Like I know that generator that we have is kind of like an issue.
It's always a
That
question.
came- That came from the BRC.
And I mean, there's obviously, is there
But there's-
sprinklers in here?
No, and there's 4 heating zones, which we can never balance.
And
Right.
Someone's always got a
So
window
there's
open.
probably some replacement
I
of
think
stuff
there is, isn't
that
that, I mean, those
you're
are
looking at in the future.
Yeah.
Where if
Those
you
are
had that
alarms,
combined
isn't that-
building,
Yeah, that's not as
the
good.
systems are shared,
That's not one.
so that, I think it's.
Yeah, there's safety and efficiency
Yeah, I mean, I think,
benefits
yeah,
to,
just the efficiency of new appliances, new windows and new
Well,
doors,
and-
like,
and
you're
that's
gonna
gonna
see a
work-
cost savings for everything.
They're gonna complain about that too, because that's always, the new laws these days, a lot of what the numbers you're gonna get are not gonna be accurate, 'cause you're gonna have to have all electric.
Yep.
Because there's nothing else, and it's the most expensive way to go. A
Yep.
lot of the things that they're gonna cost, that's what people are gonna object to. So we're gonna have to, you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the cost of doing business, right? So if you want your town to be taken seriously and you want the best services possible, you gotta invest in them. It's solely what it comes down to.
But I think like what Jen was saying, telling the story of where we were and
Yeah.
how we got
Yeah.
to this, people think this was probably a really planned building and like, oh, PD was put down there, but they
yeah,
don't
why do you
know
need a
that
new
it-
building?
Yeah.
Why do you even need one? Like, no
Yeah.
one ever goes back there because they don't drive around town hall.
Right.
But then they can be like, no, this was the townspeople doing the best with what they had at their means. This was not like a capital project.
It's not a
Exactly.
50-year plan
It wasn't
building.
like, hey, like the PD was probably meant to be downstairs because that was a nice landing spot.
Yeah, no, it just happened.
No.
I can't remember, but to be honest with you, I
Wasn't a
think
plan.
it was $20,000, but goodness knows, it was what, 40-something years ago.
Right.
But I remember the budget was very, very,
Yeah.
we certainly didn't have to do a capital,
Yeah, you're not doing it as, I mean, this is a real capital investment as opposed to just, hey, we need to,
I was
we
getting
can
into,
band together and do something good.
Yeah.
But
I get into that with some of my local neighbors, because they've been around, and we get into it sometimes. I got into it just today with one of them. I said, you don't, we were all here, a lot of us were, where I live, and I said, you know what, I'm actually for this. And, what, you're what? You're gonna spend that money? I said, you're gonna spend the money some way or another.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
might as well at least, those that jump on board have a say. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
the
you can see where your money's
sooner
gonna
it's
go.
spent, the less it's gonna cost.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I was just gonna say that
That
cost
is-
is always gonna go
Yeah.
up.
That is true.
Keep going up.
But they're gonna have to, in that, the alternate to that, we're gonna have to start letting up on some of these others. You people are gonna have to stop doing things like, not that I have a problem with the amphitheater, but all these small things like the not small, but they're 800,000, that kind of thing, the solar. Some of those things are gonna have to go by these wild pens that we've got, they're out there.
Well, the voters are voting yes on those things, so,
But
I
the-
think
all-
we have to plan this project
But
so
you
that
can't,
it's adaptable.
eventually, when you,
So
if
that,
you, all you have to do is figure out the dollars per
4
thousand.
years in a row,
This is how I won the school.
at least.
I told them it was gonna be $5 a thousand increase, and they didn't believe me. And when the thing came out, they couldn't believe it. Lois, you hit it right on. No, it's simple arithmetic. So you need to tell them what it's gonna cost them, and say, look, we're gonna do this for this period of time. We're not gonna, all the things you've got out there right now, they can't all happen at the same time. There's 3 big things out there, and that has to, you have to be saying, we're gonna put some of these things on hold, or we're watching the money, because it's only fair to these people that are retired. They wanna stay in this town, and if you keep doing it to them, you're gonna force them all out,
Yep.
and that's wrong.
Yeah, there's a way to do it, so that way, there's obviously gonna be an impact on taxes, but there's a way to do it that, we're not asking for, a palace here. We're asking
state-of-the-art
for-
helicopter
Yeah.
pad.
Yeah, we're asking for a feasible building that's gonna allow us to give the town the best services possible. It's the same thing with the town hall. Something that the residents can be proud of too.
And they can do, I say, take a look at some of the other, and I'll give them to you eventually. I'll write them all down for you. There's 3 or 4 things out there now that are big project money, and the town's gonna have to say, not this year.
Yeah, yep.
Not next, not till we get there. Something has to give.
Lois, there's really not.
Yeah, there
Solar
is.
at the school has already been approved, and it is not that big ticket of an item,
I
since
thought
we're
it was
getting like
800,000.
250,000 back from the Fed, and we're saving $50,000 a year on electric bills. And that's already been approved. The voters already approved that. So I don't know what other big projects you're talking about. The
Right.
amphitheater's already paid for. So I hear you that we can't do all the big things at once, but I'm wondering what other big things you're thinking
Well,
about.
I say at the moment, it's a come to me, but I had a list.
It's the solar, but that's not as big as it sounds.
So we have the capital, so there is a capital improvement plan
Right.
Right,
now,
right.
which there wasn't.
And it's got the regular stuff on it, the
So,
snow plows.
In theory, that is what will be followed to make sure that, because I think what you're saying is you don't want all
You
these
can't
big
do it all at
projects to
once.
stack all at
Yeah.
the same
Yeah,
time.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta spread them
That's
out.
true.
Yeah.
Has there been strong dissatisfaction expressed publicly?
about,
About going ahead with the combined building and so forth.
no, I would say like at town meeting, when we voted to rename the fund,
Yeah.
there were questions about whether it made sense to move the town offices.
That's what I heard.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
that's what
I
basically
think people
what
are
I would
open
say.
to it. The number of people in town that I've talked to, if you point out, the imperfections, if you will, here for the town hall and how things could be better, they seem to realize pretty quickly, oh yeah, that does make sense to move them, that way we're not in the same position 5 to 10 years from
Right.
now. And
What-
now asking for multi-millions again, just to
What
solve
are we,
over it.
what are we saying strongly and publicly as to the present dissatisfactions? I mean, I hear about all of the problems downstairs. I hear about it not being large enough.
I encourage people to come take a tour.
The what?
Encourage people to come take a tour.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
take a tour of downstairs, we're happy to show you.
yes.
Even take a peek up here, talk to your town employees. These are the people that truly run the town, and these people are put in positions to run the town and run it as smoothly as can be. Talk to them and get their opinions on it.
And good for the people like Karen and Daphne and Andy and Jillian and so forth to talk about the size of what they live with and so Yeah. forth.
I think there's general acceptance that we need to move the PD, although people
Right.
worry about the cost, the price tag.
Of course.
I think there's a little, I think people feel like, are we moving the town hall just because? I think we really need, that's why I think we need to
Yes.
tell a really good story, because I think people feel like it was sort of like, well, let's just add this on, and that feels unsatisfying to people. So I think we need to tell a really good story about why it makes
Yes.
financial sense, because to your point, if we just move the PD and then this building gets worse, then we're gonna have to move this building,
Right.
and there's gonna be a whole nother capital investment
Whole nother
plan,
committee,
which needs its
whatever,
own
yeah.
foundation and its own building, and it's gonna be additional cost.
And
So we just have to be
realistically,
careful how we tell the story.
Well,
to
for those
people.
that aren't in tune with the town politics and stuff like that, it's educating what everyone in the town hall does. All the stuff Karen gets done on a daily basis, all the stuff Daphne does.
I totally disagree with you. To be honest with you, from everybody I know,
Yeah.
the upstairs is fine. Your people are working 3.5 days a week. This building is more than adequate for the staffing and the time this is the general feeling. That there's more than enough time, place and stuff for the people, the hours that they're here. There is plenty of room. The upstairs is fine, and it's not leaking, it's not whatever. But reality is that the downstairs is not.
Right.
And so therefore, that's where you have to stay with it. Because if you try, and I'll tell you what, if you try to say that the town hall needs a bigger town hall for these employees, which everybody really feels that they're very, we have plenty of staff who have lots of time and lots of space. So I don't think that argument will never fly. If you use that, you're gonna lose it.
Does
I'll
that
tell you
make
right
sense,
now.
Karen?
Because I know, don't forget, I have a very,
I think there's a lot of
I speak for a
misled
large
people.
portion of this town.
I hear what you're saying.
But I think
Don't
it's,
use it. It's no problem. Just don't. You can bring it up, but don't make it a focal point, because that will give them an argument. Right now, what I told you earlier is the most sensible way to handle it. I just dealt with half my, with friends this morning. They can't get over that I'm for this, but I told them we talk about it, about the fact that when renovations are always cheaper. For one thing, you're taking all your equipment, internal equipment, you're not buying a whole new, and you are filling a need and a chance for it to expand. But if you go in with the idea of replacing this upstairs because your people don't have enough space, you'll lose it right now.
So you're saying we should focus more on
Focus the police department.
history of the building and
Right,
how
and the
it
police
was
department.
this
And the fact that the basement's not going anywhere, so if we
Right.
move PD,
It's-
we still have to deal with
Just enough.
downstairs.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how I always look at
That's why
things.
you make that the whole
All right,
focal
Dick.
point.
Take care.
And you're
Bye,
still gonna
Dick.
have to
Thank
focus, you gotta, the PD, don't forget, we had a volunteer, when we started, we had a volunteer chief, that was it. And we had 1 or 2 volunteer policemen or whatever. But we now we're soon to have 12? I mean, reality is, they're living in this, downstairs, and we refer to it, I used to refer to it as the swamp, because it's out there.
It still is.
That'd be a safe
That,
assumption.
you've got to shoot to your audience.
I think that makes sense, Lois, and I think it would be reasonable to say, though, that there's no growth room
there's no,
up
yeah, I
here.
think I.
Well, yeah,
There's no
Space.
additional,
But
there's
But
no empty offices.
don't use that argument that your people up here need more space, because it won't fly. It won't fly. The
I
amount
don't
of
think
time,
it would hurt to look at it through the rec lens as well. I know, I mean, I do that on a daily basis.
and I wouldn't,
But think about some other projects that do need to take place over there. By just doing this one project alone, we're also gonna be saving on a multitude of projects like parking and whatnot
Yeah.
over there. So, I mean, again, maybe that's not a pitch you wanna use to try to win people over, but
don't,
we're talking about maybe a new gym at some point in the next 10-ish years, parking, and so when you put all those varying factors together, you're also gonna be saving cost by moving this over here.
Yeah.
So again, that's why I do on a day-to-day basis.
yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that, you know, putting it together makes, you know, just makes the right sense.
Yeah,
But
I
just
think that's a
don't,
good idea, because people understand that we need more parking over there, more lighting,
So by
more
doing-
safety,
you are
and
gonna-
this
Yeah.
would
We
fold
don't
that
have
in.
lighting from parking over
Right,
there and whatnot.
right, that would
So-
fold
And
this
it's
in.
dark over
Yeah.
there too.
Yeah, that's a
If
good
you
point.
park over by the basketball courts, like, you can't see your hand.
That's
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
no,
that's more an
it-
argument for the location.
Yes.
yeah, the
Yes.
location,
than anything else.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But just,
Yeah, that's not
I'm
gonna
just
sell
rec guy,
it.
So you take what you want with it, but that's how I look at it, is like,
yeah,
the people that spend time at rec, they live over there during spring season
Yeah.
or fall season, and they're gonna notice that by doing some of these things and,
yeah, it's kind of a two birds, one stone
you
thing.
know, on a day-to-day basis, our day ends at 5 o'clock, we go home, but for a lot of those families, they're going to the ball fields when the workday is over, so the parking and all that stuff is
Yeah.
limited, so the location factor.
Yep.
Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, but
no,
I
and
think
that's the
it
reason I was asking about the money, because when you're, like when I was telling you about the, middle school, they literally, when we did the building, the cost was 52 million and 55 million, right? It was $5 a thousand or $5.20 a thousand. When you put it down to the taxpayer's level, then they see the world differently. That $2 million or $3 million was in a bond was only 20 cents on a thousand.
Yep.
I mean, and that's where their pocketbook comes in.
Yep.
And particularly, so that's why I needed I was asking for numbers, because we'll get a ballpark figure. And it'll, that's the only way we can win.
We try to get a ballpark, we try to come in under that ballpark.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I
it.
mean, the level of study they're doing, you're gonna be in the ballpark, but you have a huge contingency that
Yeah.
retires as the project moves forward in design. Like,
Right.
at this level, I would give it a 40% contingency, because you
Right.
haven't done anything.
Right, oh yeah,
You
for
pick
sure.
the spot, you know the footprint,
Depends
but you
what
don't know.
materials you
yeah.
use and.
You haven't got into the nitty-gritty details,
But-
and then as each phase goes on, you retire like 10%, give or take. So by the time you get to bid docs, if the market isn't, I mean, it's calmed down now, you might go into it, like, we're gonna go in with a 5% contingency budget so that we know what things are gonna happen or something's gonna come up. But the idea is that you have to give them the big number at first, to be like, it's whatever, $3 million, but that includes $500,000 in contingency.
Right.
Yeah. And
Isn't guaranteed to go into the project, but as we learn things, maybe you end up at 2.7 and you have 100,000,
Right.
whatever it is. But this number will get them in the room to be like, to do the PD combined with the town hall, it's this many million. Here's the assumptions and qualifications with that number. If we go to the next phase of design, if the mission is to be like, you can build the footprint, but you don't fit out the entire inside, as long as you build the shell
Right.
ready for renovation, you're much better off than being like, oh, we have to add a whole other building on.
Right,
Because the foundation is, I mean, it's regardless of what we're putting there, you want to get that.
right, that's absolutely
The
correct.
site work and all
Adding
the
a
foundation.
second floor or second space is
Yeah.
cheaper than adding a second building.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you can always have the room and it looks like it's 2 stories, but the second floor is just framed out. It's not-
Empty.
yeah, that's what the Kingston, the Congregational Church, that's how when they did the addition on that. They built, we didn't use the second floor for, I think, maybe 10 years, because
Yeah.
they didn't have, but it made sense, as you had, like you say, you had the floor.
Yeah, I mean, you can have space that hasn't been finished off, but it's ready there should you want to do it, because the bulk of the cost is just making the footprint,
Right.
not actually the finish.
And that's good business in my book.
Well, and I think if that came down to it, people were really, that might not be the first edition at town meeting where you're asking for the whole thing, but if that is one of the kind of, I guess, critical path problems, is then you'd be like, all right, the design is adaptable to be like, all right, we're building out 75%, we save whatever, $500,000, but it's there for when the move is ready to be made.
Right.
I mean, because obviously some people are gonna be like, prove to me you can sell this for $1 million. And that is a huge selling point.
Yep.
But if it's a hypothetical $1 million, at some date and some future owner, we have no clue who they are.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing. Somebody would be like, yeah, if you tell me we're making $1 million that goes towards the proceeds of this project and subsidizes the project.
Isn't
As
that,
soon as you have a purchase and sale, like you'll have a lot more
Yeah.
people interested in the
Right.
project.
yes,
Right.
yeah, because upfront, you're selling a product to the, basically that's what you're doing. And you need to, put it on the best foot, I guess that's the best way to put it. Put it out there the best, so that they really, and show that you've done your homework and you're aware.
No, I think we've taken the site off the table. The other sites we were looking at were putting something in a place that, yes, it technically fit there, but people would be like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, why is
Yeah.
this?
Like, there would
Yeah.
be like an apprehension about,
Yeah.
this seems like a terrible idea just because who's gonna interact with the facility in that location?
Right, this is a
This
good place.
answers like what Andrew's saying. It's like, there's a lot of mutual benefits
Right,
that just come with it, and maybe they don't get realized for a long time, but like parking is, anyone who uses that place,
Yeah.
just go on them every spring or fall Saturday, it's actually dangerous.
Well, and that was one of the main things that
Those-
came up at Plan New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Parking, lighting, safety,
Safety, right, just
bathrooms,
traffic
those were like the
running
main thing.
internally,
This
that's
would
it.
help address some of all of those things.
So I think those are mutual benefits, and that if the primary pushback is just the idea of the combined facility and the cost that is associated with it, there's ways to work with
To mitigate
future
it.
iterations of the design process to
That's
be
true.
like,
very smart. Yeah,
you just said, I
great.
mean, it's not gonna take a $3 million project and turn it into $1 million.
No, of
Right.
course not,
But
but they
it can
see,
show that you're
you're planning,
thinking of that,
Right.
There's
those
wiggle room,
financial
yeah.
concerns.
you're
So
considering them and the money, yeah.
the only problem
That's
with
good.
carrying those forward is you can do that early, it's just creating those alternatives after you've gone through a lot of process means rework. So it's
Like you
fine.
said, the footprint's critical.
We set the footprint and say this gets us everything plus room to say like this is gonna meet our needs for 20, 30 years. This building has obviously done great
Sure has. I don't know,
and
ex-
then adapted as it went on a shoestring.
yeah,
Right.
and I don't remember what year we did the original building. It's gotta be 25 or 30 years, but I don't remember the exact dates.
The original building was done in '79, and this addition
The
was done
addition
in-
was 79?
Well, no, the original building was '79, and this
Right.
portion of the building was 2001.
Okay, that would be right, because I moved here in
So
74,
25 years
so
ago.
that would be right. I couldn't remember.
So a building that is intended and planned to last and meet the needs for a long time could last twice that.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
mean,
he
Oh, yeah,
did, he
probably
did
will.
say
50
50 years.
years.
Yeah, probably
No,
will.
yeah, you shoot for a 50-year building.
Yeah.
And the materials of construction and everything, the things that are gonna have lower useful
Right.
lives are your
Yeah.
mechanical
different world.
equipment.
Yeah.
Like, but the bones of the building are gonna be
Yeah.
50 years and then some. I'm sure somebody will come out with a more efficient way to, the lighting,
Yeah.
heating and all that kind of stuff, but no, you wouldn't plan for a building that, I mean, this was probably planned just to be like, well, we used to meet on a porch, so now we actually have a
This
structure.
is way better.
And then
Yeah,
you
building.
show that progression, and people are
This is
gonna be like,
way
wow,
better.
that's really how we did it.
We went from a porch to this, and now we're going the next
And we
step.
added on in 2001,
Yeah.
and now we're,
Added to the, yeah,
and again, on a site that probably in
was not,
perfect.
well, it
world
was,
you
it was
wouldn't choose.
donated for
It
good
It was
reason.
donated. It
He
was
couldn't do
free
much
land.
with it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I mean, no offense, but, it wasn't prime building.
There's nothing
Was
private
it
about the plot.
donated?
No.
It was
It'd be
donated by a
tough to
town
build on
resident?
if
Yeah, Bobby Sanders.
Nowadays.
Yeah, you probably get a lot of contracts in no way.
He helped build it too.
What?
He helped build it too.
I bet.
Oh, he helped to build it, he did build it.
Yeah.
We all did.
Makes sense. I mean,
Lois was putting the nails in herself.
and we've squeaked it out for a really
Not
long
quite.
time.
Not quite.
Yeah.
I was
Swinging
working,
hammers and.
I was building Seabrook at that time.
No.
I started as the first woman on the site, 3 of us, 12 years later, part-time job, 12 years later. It's supposed to be 2 years and $149 million. When we got done, it was 12 years and $3.5 billion. And they had shut down public service, bankrupted them, doing it. I went from a junior clerk to a full engineer before I got done.
Wow.
Yep.
So Kip's not here to discuss any more site work plans, but I don't think they've done too much of anything.
He just, because he'd already done those test pits, right?
Yeah.
Clearing's done.
Yeah, they've got some trees done. Do we wanna pick a date for,
So that was signed, did that go out to them? So how
Yes.
quickly will that turn around?
30 to 90
Pretty
days?
quick. I mean, he was saying they were gonna have us something within 60 days,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he said a couple of months to be at
It
the
was
meeting
pretty
last time.
quick.
So they have this, I did ask him to follow up with the level of interest, level of effort, level of effort, the level of effort hours. And then I think we would be getting going pretty quickly.
I mean, I don't know, okay. I don't personally think it matters how
Well, I
many
didn't want
hours.
them to
I don't
hold
either,
that up.
I think that's a,
I
mean,
didn't want
if
them
you
to hold that
detail.
up. That's why I
Yeah.
was telling them to sign
10,000.
it.
If you
the
don't make
contract is for the
100.
completed project,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. If you
We'll
get
get
$2,000 worth of work in 2 hours, I don't
however
really
many
care how long it
hours.
takes, yeah.
If they're so good, they can do it quick,
Yeah.
great, they
Draw
still
it
get their
out.
money.
Truth be told, they're probably not gonna make any money.
Probably not, yeah,
This is
that's
an
kind of what I
hourly
was
wage job.
thinking.
This is a.
First step,
This is a first
gesture.
step with the idea that
Yeah, this is a
they
charity.
learn they learn the landscape and then,
They can present a better product for
I
us
said
than
this
the
was
actual
charity
government.
because
no, they'll do what they're delivering the scope, whether
Yeah.
that they do it under a number of hours that they actually make any money.
Right.
So it's all the risk is with them.
Right,
So if they told you that's 100 hours,
it sort of
100
doesn't
hours
matter,
and
they're giving us
$10,000
a project
like,
either
That'd
way,
be cheap.
yeah, they're giving us a
they're
project.
billing us
yeah.
on a lump sum basis,
Yeah.
so it's not.
And I love how they're doing it pretty quickly, because, you know, if we do just have 12 months until the next town meeting, we have to
Well, I
have
think
a
also
plan
if we
in
put
place.
that out to bid, you might get no or one response.
Sure.
I mean, right now, everyone in the industry is turning.
The select
away.
board really didn't have,
Is it still, I thought
big
it was,
problem
it slowed up big
with
time.
not having a bid,
If you're in,
it's $10,000.
some of the
Yeah.
private side is, but the public side, I mean, we could hire 6 people today if they existed.
Wow.
I mean,
I've been in both, but
yeah, it's the craziest I've seen.
the
it.
private sector, a lot of,
Yeah.
Do
The
you
private
know,
developers
um,
have some
yeah, it's quite,
slack created just
yeah,
because
it's,
interest
re-
rate.
recently, yes, it's really
But
slowed
the
up.
public side is.
They don't have any product,
Gonna be too heavy.
you know,
they're crazy.
crazy.
Do you guys know in terms of like public education, keeping the public informed, like, I don't know if the chief had sort of like a plan for like after
know-
this report comes back, would we do like a
Another
public
Q&A,
session?
yeah.
Yes, he has a
Once-
I think-
Once we have something to report back
The
to
more we
town,
can do that, the
then we can
better, I
start getting
think.
back out there
Yeah,
and do, you know.
He's very much onto that, it wasn't,
Yeah.
because he said he'd done it in his town.
Yeah, we
And
need
he
to
got
get
turned down
people
3
involved.
times.
Yeah.
You know, he found out that you have to, you just got to
Yeah,
tell
It
the
might-
people.
it might mean that we have to give it to the select board, we have to give it to the economic
Right.
development board, we have to give it for a general public info session.
to
It
try
might
to get
be
as
like,
many
hey, there's
people-
8 bites at coming to hear this information. and
Yep. And then if we can get a video of it, we can
Project
put it on the website, we can put it on Facebook, like, we gotta just try to get, so that people can hear the story more and more and sort of start figuring
Yeah.
out their question.
And start passing like I did today, and I'm doing with my, you know, my neighbors, talk about it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because.
the more people that support it, you know, we don't have to agree on all the tiny little details, but that
No.
support the
The
concept,
concept.
that's gonna
exactly.
be really helpful, definitely.
Would
Good.
May 7th work for everyone? Same time?
Let me look, it sounds wrong.
The first Tuesday. I'm here for board.
May 7th.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
at Salty's.
All right, calendar. Tuesday.
Yep, that would work for me.
May 7th, you guys? So we'll do May
That's a
7th.
Tuesday, yes.
Tuesday, yep.
Yep,
At
Same
1:30?
time, 1:30?
First
Yeah.
initial last name at Brentwood@h.gov or Brentwood PD.
Jay Dooney at Brentwood.
Same time?
Yep, 1:30. And then if there's nothing else, we'll do a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. That's always my favorite thing.
Second.
Yeah, second.
Motion to adjourn.
We'll
Come
find
on,
out.
jump at once, God.
All right, so 1:30.
As I just exit out of my calendar.
Did you end our stream?
Not yet.
Already.